Cut the cord. Cord cutting is one of the most misunderstood parts of spiritual work. People hear the phrase and think of anger, conflict, or dramatic endings. But true cord cutting rarely looks like any of that. Cord cutting is clarity. It's the moment your spirit stops carrying what your mind has been negotiating with. It's the quiet recognition that a connection, a pattern, or an energetic tie has reached its natural end. Most of us don't cut cords because we're angry. We cut them because we're tired, because we've outgrown the version of ourselves that tolerated the drain, because something in us finally whispers, "This is not mine anymore." And before the release comes the resistance, the hesitation, the guilt, the maybe I'm overreacting, the maybe I should hold on a little longer, the emotional bargaining we do with our own intuition. But if you've ever felt the weight of someone else's energy sitting in your chest, if you've ever felt a pull that didn't feel like love, if you've ever felt drained after a conversation, a memory, or a name, you already know what a cord feels like. And you already know when it's time to let it go. I'm Kathia. Welcome to Ascended Spirit Amplifiers. If you're ready to release what no longer belongs to you, to reclaim the energy you've been leaking, and to return to yourself with clarity and sovereignty, settle in and let's begin. Why I created Cut the Cord. I didn't create this melt because I wanted to let go of something simple. I created it because I finally had to face the truth that some of the energy I was carrying wasn't mine. For a long time, I thought my thoughts were my thoughts. My emotions were my emotions. My heaviness was my heaviness. But there comes a moment, usually after you've run the same loop for the 100th time or 1,000th, where you realize something else is feeding on your energy. Something old, something familiar, something you've been emotionally attached to without even realizing it. Some cords don't feel like cords at first. They feel like loyalty. They feel like responsibility. They feel like I owe them this. They feel like I can't just walk away. They feel like love, even when they're draining you. And some connections are so deep, so woven into your identity, that you don't even recognize the pattern until you're exhausted by it. You think you're healing. You think you're processing. You think you're working through it. But really, you're being pulled in circles. That's what happened to me. I kept returning to the same thoughts, the same emotional spirals, the same internal arguments. Not because I wasn't growing, but because something in my field was still attached, still feeding, still influencing, still whispering in ways that felt like my own voice. And here's the truth most people don't talk about. Some cords don't break in one moment. Some cords require several sessions, several layers, several realizations before you finally understand the depth of what you've been carrying. Releasing isn't always peaceful. It isn't always graceful. It isn't always pretty. Sometimes release feels like grief. Sometimes it feels like a shaking. Sometimes it feels like losing a part of yourself until you realize it was never you to begin with. This melt was born from that process, from the moment I stopped blaming myself for the loops, for the moment I stopped calling it overthinking and started calling it what it was, an energetic attachment that had outlived its purpose. Cut the cord is for anyone who has felt that same pull, the draining connection, the looping thought, the emotional weight that doesn't match the present moment, the tie that keeps tugging you even after the relationship, the season, or the lesson has ended. This melt is not about anger. It's not about punishment. It's not about erasing your past. It's about reclaiming your energy. It's about recognizing what's yours and what isn't. It's about releasing the attachments that keep you small, tired, or tangled. It's about returning to yourself, fully, clearly, and without apology. This melt is for the moment you finally say, I'm done carrying what isn't mine. The cut the cord ingredient lineage. Every ingredient in this blend carries a lineage, not just an energy. Cord cutting is ancient work. Every culture has had a way of naming, severing, and releasing what drains the spirit. This is part of their story. Beeswax. Used across ancient Egypt, Greece, Rome, and indigenous traditions worldwide, beeswax has always been a material of purification and truth revealing. It burns clean, steady, and without distortion, which is why it was used in rituals meant to expose what was hidden or stuck. Beeswax doesn't just melt, it clarifies. It softens what is rigid, loosens what is embedded, and brings buried patterns to the surface. In cord cutting work, beeswax becomes the foundation, the moment the truth rises, the moment the fog lifts, the moment you finally see the pattern for what it is. Citrine. Across Greek, Roman, and Chinese traditions, citrine has been honored as a stone of clarity, discernment, and solar truth. It was carried not for luck, but for the ability to see through illusion. Citrine doesn't cut the cord, it reveals it. It shows you where the attachment lives, how it moves, and what it feeds on. In this melt, citrine teaches the first step of release, recognition. Lapis lazuli. Used in ancient Egypt, Mesopotamia, Persia, and across the Mediterranean, lapis was the stone of truth, sovereignty, and spiritual authority. Pharaohs wore it to stay aligned with the divine order. Priests used it to see beyond deception. Lapis doesn't sever, it exposes. It brings the deeper layers of the connection into view, the emotional ties, the mental loops, the spiritual contracts. In cord cutting, lapis teaches you to stop negotiating with what drains you. Clear quartz. Found in spiritual traditions across the world, from indigenous North America to Tibetan Buddhism, clear quartz has always been the amplifier, the clarifier, the lens that sharpens intention. Quartz doesn't choose sides. It magnifies whatever truth is already present. In this melt, quartz sharpens the blade, not to harm, but to make the separation clean, precise, and final. Sunstone. Across Norse, indigenous, and Mediterranean cultures, sunstone was carried as a fragment of the sun, a reminder of personal power, autonomy, and the right to stand in your own energy. Sunstone doesn't cut the cord. It fills the space the cord once occupied. It restores vitality, confidence, and self-return. In this blend, sunstone teaches the final step of release, reclamation. Calendula. Used across Europe, Africa, and the Middle East, calendula has long been a plant of illumination and gentle healing. It was placed on wounds, burned in rituals, and used to reveal what was hidden beneath the surface. Calendula doesn't sever, it soothes. It softens the emotional body after the release, easing the tenderness that follows deep energetic work. In this melt, Calendula teaches that clarity can be kind. Lotus plumules. Across Asia, Africa, and the Middle East, the lotus has always symbolized emergence, rising clean from the mud without denying where it came from. Lotus doesn't cut, it lifts. It helps you rise above the attachment, the story, the emotional entanglement. In cord cutting, Lotus teaches you that release is not rejection, it's evolution. Roselle. Used in African, Caribbean, and Asian traditions for purification, emotional detox, and heart clearing, Roselle has always been a plant of honest release. Roselle doesn't sever, it drains. It pulls out the emotional residue left behind after the cord is cut. In this melt, Roselle teaches the truth of release. It isn't always pleasant, but it is always necessary. Peppermint. Across Europe, the Middle East, and Asia, peppermint has been used for clarity, mental sharpness, and cutting through confusion. Peppermint doesn't cut the cord, it cuts the fog. It clears the mind so you can see the attachment without distortion. Sweet orange. Used across Mediterranean and Asian cultures, sweet orange brings emotional lightness, renewal, and relief. Orange doesn't sever, it lifts. It brings brightness back into the field after the heaviness of release. Cypress. Across Greek, Roman, Middle Eastern, and indigenous traditions, cypress has been the tree of endings, transitions, and spiritual pruning. It was used in rites of passage, funerary rituals, and energetic closures. Cypress is the severing. It is the clean cut, the boundary, the final line. In this melt, cypress teaches the sacredness of endings. Frankincense. Used across Africa, the Middle East, and Asia for purification, spiritual authority, and clearing interference. Frankincense has always been the resin of sovereignty. Frankincense doesn't cut, it claims. It restores your field to its rightful owner. In this blend, frankincense teaches the final truth of cord cutting. Your energy belongs to you again. Why they work together. Citrine reveals. Lapis exposes. Clear quartz amplifies. Sunstone restores. Calendula soothes. Lotus lifts. Roselle clears. Peppermint sharpens. Sweet orange lightens. Cypress severs. Frankincense claims. Individually, each ingredient carries its own lineage, its own history of clarity, truth, release, and reclamation across cultures and timelines. But together, they form an energetic technology of separation. Not separation as avoidance. Not separation as punishment. Separation as truth. Citrine shows you the cord. Lapis shows you the pattern. Quartz sharpens your intention. Cypress makes the cut clean. Frankincense restores your sovereignty. Sunstone fills the space the cord once occupied. Calendula and Roselle tend the emotional body so the release doesn't collapse you. Lotus lifts you out of the old identity. Peppermint clears the fog. Sweet orange brings you back into yourself with warmth instead of shock. This blend doesn't banish anything. It doesn't force release. It doesn't rip cords out of your field. It does something far more intelligent. It brings your spirit, your mind, your emotions, and your energy into the same moment of clarity. the moment where release becomes natural instead of dramatic. Cord cutting isn't a single action, it's a sequence. Recognition, exposure, clarity, severance, reclamation, integration. This blend supports every stage. It doesn't cut the cord for you. It creates the internal conditions where you can finally see the attachment clear enough to let it go. Not from fear, not from anger, but from truth. These ingredients don't force the ending. They simply reveal that the ending has already happened, and your energy is finally ready to catch up. The power of making your own cut the cord tool. Tools don't cut cords, you do. But when you create a tool with intention, your clarity becomes amplified. Across cultures, people crafted their own spiritual tools not because the object held the power, but because the act of creation awakened something inside them. A truth, a boundary, a recognition they had been avoiding. Cord cutting is not passive work. It asks you to see what you've been carrying. It asks you to name what drains you. It asks you to stop calling someone else's energy your responsibility. When you make your own cut the cord tool, you're not trying to force an ending. You're acknowledging the ending that already happened, the one your spirit recognized long before your mind caught up. Some cords are obvious, some are subtle. Some are woven so deeply into your identity that you don't realize they are attachments until you feel the drain. And some cords require several sessions, several layers of honesty, before you finally understand the depth of the connection and what release truly looks like. Creating this tool is part of that process. You're telling your spirit, I'm ready to stop carrying what isn't mine. I'm ready to see the pattern clearly. I'm ready to reclaim my energy. That's why these tools work. Not because they sever the cord for you, and not because they override your intuition, but because they reflect your truth back to you, cleanly, sharply, without distortion. This melt isn't the source of your release. You are. The melt simply amplifies the clarity, the courage, and the reclamation already alive within you. The part of you that finally recognizes the pattern, finally sees the drain, finally chooses yourself. Cut the cord, the creation process. You will need the following to create your own cut the cord wax melt. 12 ounces of beeswax pellets, 2 tablespoons of organic, unrefined virgin coconut oil, 40 drops of peppermint essential oil, 85 drops of sweet orange essential oil, 50 drops of cypress essential oil, and 85 drops of frankincense essential oil. 6 teaspoons each of citrine, lapis lazuli, clear quartz, and sunstone, 12 to 24 calendula flowers, 6 teaspoons of lotus plumehules, and 6 teaspoons of roselle. This recipe makes 6 large melts that can be cut into quarters for extended use. All tools and ingredients are linked in the description box. No sponsorships, no contracts, just what actually works for me. I do make a small commission if you buy through the links. The storage jars and cookie sheets can be found at the Dollar Tree. Step 1. Prepare your workspace, where separation begins. Set up your wax warmer or hot plate in a well-ventilated area. Lay out your pot, stirrer, thermometer, and molds. Gather your crystals and botanicals, and pre-measure your essential oils. Cord cutting doesn't begin in the wax. It begins in your clarity. This melt is a boundary, a reclamation, a moment where you choose to stop carrying what drains you. Step 2. Melt the beeswax, softening what was stuck. Add 12 ounces of beeswax to your pot and melt it over low to medium heat, around 145 to 160 degrees Fahrenheit. Beeswax melts slowly on purpose. It teaches you that even the tightest energetic knots soften under steady warmth. Stir gently as it liquefies, letting the golden wax mirror the release you're calling in. Keep the temperature steady, never above 180 degrees Fahrenheit. Too much heat burns the wax and dulls the oils. Step 3. Add coconut oil, loosening the grip. Once the wax reaches 160 degrees Fahrenheit, remove it from the heat and add 2 tablespoons of coconut oil. This softens the final melt and improves scent diffusion. Energetically, it represents loosening the grip the moment the cord begins to weaken. Step 4. Infuse the essential oils, the breath of release. Let the wax cool to 135 to 140 degrees Fahrenheit, the temperature where essential oils stay potent. Then add 40 drops of peppermint, 85 drops of sweet orange, 50 drops of cypress, and 85 drops of frankincense. Stir slowly, letting the scent rise like a clean breath after a long exhale. This is where the melt shifts from ingredients to liberation. Step 5. Prepare the molds. Build the altar of severance. Before pouring, prepare each mold like a tiny altar of clarity. Into each cavity, add 1 tablespoon of citrine to reveal the cord and bring the truth into focus, 1 teaspoon of lapis lazuli to expose the pattern and the end of self-negotiation, 1 teaspoon of clear quartz to sharpen the intention and make the cut clean, 1 teaspoon of sunstone to restore your energy and fill the space the cord once occupied, 2 to 4 calendula flowers to soothe the emotional body as the release unfolds, 1 teaspoon of lotus plumules to lift you out of the old attachment and into your next timeline, 1 teaspoon of roselle to clear the residue and drain what no longer belongs in your field. These botanicals and stones don't just decorate. They anchor the melt in truth, clarity, and clean separation. This is where the melt becomes a tool, not because of what it looks like, but because of what you're placing into it. Step 6. Pour the wax, the first layer of release. Pour a thin layer of wax into each mold. This helps the botanicals settle and prevents floating. Let it thicken slightly, not fully set, just enough to hold. The first layer is the moment the cord snaps. Quiet, precise, final. Step 7. Add the remaining wax. Let freedom take its shape. Once the first layer grips the ingredients, pour the remaining wax slowly over the top. Let clarity fill in the space where old attachments once lived. Pour with intention, knowing this tool is being built to amplify your release, not replace it. This is where the melt becomes whole, where the ingredients become a vessel, and your intention becomes form. Step 8. Let them set. Trust the unrushed. Allow the melts to cool naturally for a minimum of 24 hours. No freezer, no fridge, no rushing. Release lands in stillness, patience, and breath. Let the melts honor that. Once fully cooled, remove them from the molds and store them in an airtight container. They're ready for your next moment of choosing clarity, separation, and energetic sovereignty. The reality of release. Before we begin the meditation, I want to name something clearly, something people rarely talk about when it comes to cord cutting. Release is not passive. It asks something of you. Not perfection, not spiritual performance, not dramatic rituals or forced detachment, but the quiet effort of seeing the pattern for what it is, feeling the weight of what you've been carrying, recognizing what isn't yours, and choosing to let it go anyway. Cord cutting isn't always peaceful. Sometimes it feels like grief. Sometimes it feels like a shaking. Sometimes it feels like clarity so sharp it startles you. And sometimes it feels like nothing at all. Just a subtle shift, a quiet loosening, a breath you didn't realize you were holding. All of it is release. Some cords break cleanly. Some unravel slowly. Some require several sessions because the attachment runs deep, woven through memory, identity, or old versions of yourself you haven't met in years. There is no right way to feel during this work. There's only your way. This meditation isn't about forcing an ending or ripping something out of your field. It's about letting yourself recognize what has already ended and allowing your energy to catch up to that truth. So take what resonates, leave what does not, and let your body guide you. Let your spirit guide you. Let the release meet you in the form you can hold. When you're ready, we'll begin. Cut the cord, the meditation. Find a position that feels natural for your body. Close your eyes and let yourself arrive. Not to perform, not to reach, not to make anything happen. Just arrive. Feel the weight of your body where it rests. The chair, the bed, the floor, holding you without asking anything in return. Let your breath move in and out of your body without effort. Let your system settle. Let your edges soften. Let your body remember that it is safe to be here. On your next inhale, let yourself drop one layer deeper. On your exhale, feel the denser energy begin to loosen. Feeling your energy move, not downward, but inward, into the sensation of being here, into the quiet beneath your thoughts, into the part of you that's been waiting for a moment without pressure. As your body settles, your energy begins to make itself more known. Not because you're searching for it, but because you're finally still enough to feel it. Let your awareness move gently into your throat. Not to search for anything, but to feel what's sitting there. The truths unspoken. The words held. The weight you've carried. Let that awareness drift down into your chest, into the space that holds your tenderness, your boundaries, your ache, your longing, your truth. Let it move through your arms, down into your hands, the places where you've held on, reached out, carried more than you needed to. Let your awareness move into your belly, the center of your knowing, your instinct, your power. Let it move through your thighs, your calves, your feet, the places that have walked you through every cycle, every lesson, every ending, not to find anything, just to notice what's already there. A warmth, a tightness, a heaviness, a numbness, a quiet. Whatever you feel is enough. This is the doorway. Now bring your awareness to the place in your body where something has been pulling on you. Past the point of usefulness, past the point of growth, past the point of truth. You don't need to name it. You don't need to see a face. You don't need to relive anything. Just feel the pull. This is the cord. Not a punishment, not a failure, but a connection that has simply reached its end. Before anything releases, offer it compassion. Because every cord once served a purpose. Every attachment once held meaning. Every cycle once taught you something you could not have learned any other way. Place a gentle awareness on the cord and say quietly within yourself, "Gratitude for what you've taught me. I understand now." Feel what shifts. Some cords soften immediately. Some loosen slowly. Some unravel in layers. Some fall away the moment they are seen clearly. Some require a clean, sovereign cut. There is no wrong way. There is only the way that is true for you and your connections. Let the cord show you its nature. Let your body tell you what kind of release is needed. Let compassion lead the way. If the cord begins to dissolve, let it dissolve. If it begins to unravel, let it unravel. If it begins to fall away, let it fall. If it stands firm and ready, offer it one more breath of compassion, and then make a clean, intentional cut. Not from anger, not from force, from clarity, from completion. As the cord releases, feel the energy that was tied up in that connection return to you. Not all at once, but in gentle waves, returning to you in their own timing. Allow that energy to touch the past versions of you who held this cord, softening and releasing. Let it extend to the present version of you, letting your spirit be unburdened and open. Let it extend to the future version of you, clear, spacious, unentangled, waiting with a quiet knowing. Let all three align. Let all three breathe together. Let all three reset. Now bring your awareness back into your body. Feel the space where the cord once lived. Feel the quiet that follows release. Feel the truth that rises in its place. Place a hand over your heart if it feels natural. Offer yourself compassion for every version of you who carried this connection long after it stopped serving you. Offer yourself gratitude for choosing clarity, for choosing understanding, for choosing to end the cycle with wisdom instead of force. Offer your spirit team gratitude for their protection, for their guidance, for their enormous amount of patience as you move through these cycles. Take one more slow breath and let your whole system reset together. Not back to who you were, but forward into who you are now without the weight of what you just released. When you're ready, bring your awareness back to the room. You are not leaving the release. You are simply walking forward with the clarity it gave you. Thanks for watching. If something in this video resonated with you, honoring that with a like helps this work find the people who are meant to see it. And I'd love to hear your reflections in the comments. It's always beautiful to see how these messages land for different people. And by all means, share it with anyone you think might benefit. If you want to keep exploring with me, make sure you're subscribed. I share new videos every week, and each one builds on this journey in its own way. Please never forget, my intent is your ascent. See you next time.